Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 64 of the Sophie Art podcast, which is a little podcast that I do about the art and things. And on these podcasts I pull a topic out of this little bag and basically have 15 minutes to talk about it. Not allowed to change the topic and not allowed to edit the podcast. But last week I broke two of the rules because Dennis had pulled out another topic talking about something on the website. So what I've done is because I don't want to do that at the minute, I've removed all of the topics, and there's about 7 of them talking about stuff on the website. So it's quite funny. There's about 60 odd topics in here, and only 7 of them are talking about the website, and yet Dennis kept pulling them out, which is a bit weird. But you can find show notes and everything at sophielawson.com, and you can also find this podcast on video at youtube.com/sophielawson. Before we get into the main topic, I've got a couple of little things here I wanted to talk about. So the first thing is the Cats of June Art Challenge, which is a 30-day art challenge, everyday drawing cats, painting or drawing cats. So it's currently on day 20, and days 9 to 16 I spent it doing sketches. I was sketching other artists' cats, and I really enjoyed it, but I realised something, and one of the things I love about art challenges is writing. So as I'm doing the challenge, I think more important than actually doing the drawing is writing about what you're doing, because you learn so much about what you're struggling with and stuff like that. But what I realised doing that sketching was that I don't sketch enough. When I first started drawing, I was sketching all the time. So I wrote about, and I asked myself, why have I stopped sketching so much? And I'll put the blog post in the show notes, but there's a couple of things. But one of the main things was I've changed my sketchbooks. So whereas I used to use these really crappy sketchbooks, because I was using crappy sketchbooks, I could just play around in there, because I thought it didn't matter. I could just do crappy sketches. So I had crappy sketches in crappy sketchbooks. But I think part of the fun of sketching is producing crappy sketches, because it takes away a lot of the fear of trying to do something really good or something. So what happened was, the start of this year I bought some new sketchbooks, which were moleskin sketchbooks. They're still quite cheap. They're not expensive, but they're a bit more higher quality. And I'd suddenly realised that my sketchbook had turned from a sketchbook of just playing around to, it's almost turned into a book of little finished drawings, which I don't think that's what a sketchbook should be. So it was really quite eye-opening writing about it this week. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just I'm going to get the crappiest sketchbooks I can find, and then I'm determined to start sketching every day again, because I used to do it all the time. Something else that's linked to it is not having enough inspiration, really, because I realised if you're not doing things that's going to inspire you, you're not going to be inspired to sketch. So that's another thing. I need to just start filling my... Jake Parker from SBS Learn, he calls it your creative bank account. He says you need to fill your creative bank account with fun things and inspiring things, because that will find a way into your art. But I was thinking, because at first I thought, well, does that mean I need to bring video games and anime back into my life? Because that's what inspires me the most, because I just love drawing characters like that. But I thought, no, I don't have to. You can find it other ways. So for instance, I could use my sketchbook to sketch my dreams. That would be quite amazing. But the thing with that is I feel like I'm not good enough yet to do that, because I tried to sketch what I see in my head. It never looks like it. But then I was thinking, this is why you get the crappy sketchbooks. It doesn't matter what it looks like. So it's all kind of linked together, and I think it all starts with getting crappy sketchbooks. So that was one thing that I learned. Something else is that this podcast, this is like a little celebration. This podcast was awarded, it was for the top 15 transgender podcast. It actually won a little award, and I got an email from Unnug, I think that's how you say it, Unnudge. It's quite a hard name, but Unnudge emailed me from blog.feedspot.com. Again, I'll put links in the show notes. And the podcast is in the top 15 transgender podcasts you must subscribe and listen to in 2019. So what it says here is, this is a list of the best transgender podcasts from thousands of transgender podcasts on the web. And it tells you how they put together the results. But I thought I'd go through some of the podcasts because it might be quite interesting. But I linked all of this in the show notes. But some of the podcasts are What the Trans, which is a transgender news podcast. What I love about this though is, the podcast got nominated, even though it's kind of not a fully transgender podcast, which that kind of makes me even more sort of proud of it, I suppose. Because I always thought you're going to have to focus on, because when I first started this podcast, I was going to do 2 podcasts, a transgender one. I better shut the window. Somebody's decided to cut the grass. So I was going to do 2 separate podcasts, and I decided, no, I'm going to bring it all together. So that kind of makes it a little bit more special that it got the award, really. But so one of the podcasts is What the Trans, which is a transgender news podcast. Michelle and Ashley discuss transgender news, events, pop culture, and what the trans is going on. That sounds quite good. I'm going to go through this list and listen to some of these. There's one here, Diary of a Trans Man. That sounds quite fun. This show tells the story of a young transgender man as he shares his story with the world. Insightful and thoughtful, the show speaks from the heart. There's another one, this will be a nice one I think. It's called Journeys. A podcast where people are invited who are in and around the transgender community to talk about their experiences in order to bridge the gap and show who transgender people really are. That sounds nice. There's so many here. Trans in Colour. There's one called the So Free Art Podcast. Funny. Yeah, they're really nice little podcasts. Trans Positivity. So you can find that at, I'm going to do it again. Because I'm quite sort of excited by that. It was really nice. It was really nice. So that's that. Something else that is amazing. This is amazing, but it scared the poop out of me. I have this. There's quite a lot to talk about here. I got these magazines called Character Design Quarterly magazines. Now I love these magazines to bits. Absolutely love them. It's magazines full of other artists, drawings, sketches, paintings of characters, and they talk about how they get inspired, how they put together their characters and stuff. Absolutely love these magazines. That grass is getting a bit mad out there, grass cutter. But I've been reviewing these little books on my YouTube, and what happened was 3D Total Publishing, who make the magazine, actually emailed me asking if I wanted to do product reviews, which is amazing. So that would mean they said that I could go on their website, look through their books, and they got hundreds of books, and I've got probably about 5 or 10 of them. Art of books, how to draw books, and every single, I'm not just saying this, I really mean it, every single book I've bought from them I've loved. And I've said so many times how the way they arrange their books is really simple, but nice. It's like stuff doesn't feel. They know how to sort of put their pages together. So when I got that email, I was like, I was both excited and scared at the same time. And again, when you start becoming more aware, you start analysing everything, and I've realised that I've got like this fear of, I think it's like a fear of success or something. So I'd like to talk about that a bit more really, but again, it's one of those topics that I feel like I could go on forever talking about, but I'm really quite really scared. I'm scared to say yes, even though I know I should, but then I start thinking, if I say yes, am I going to review these magazines and stuff? It's going to be really weird, because you're going already it's a bit weird knowing that the people who make the books that I'm talking about are actually watching. That's weird, because you sort of think you're talking to yourself sometimes. Like, you put these videos out, you don't realise that the people you're talking about might actually be watching it. So it's a bit weird, and all of a sudden you get a bit scared. You're like, oh my god, these people are actually listening to what I'm saying. It's scary. It's scary, but it's nice. Really weird. It's very weird. So that's just something I've been thinking about recently, sort of wrestling with that really. It's a fear of failure. So 1 minute with the sketchbooks, I got a fear of failure of doing crappy sketches. So I got a fear of failure there, and then I got a fear of success down the bottom. Really weird. It's really. I'd love to talk about fear of success, analyse it, try to work out where it's coming from. But there's one more thing on this list which is split into 2 bits, and it's about lucid dreaming again. And again, I could talk about this for ages, but false awakenings, which is where you're asleep, you're dreaming, you wake up, only to realise you're still asleep. I can't believe I've been lucid dreaming for just about 1.5 years, and yet those false awakenings are still, like, really, they mess with my head. They're really trippy, but they feel so real. And I woke up today I had a bunch of them, and I just started thinking, these false awakenings are so real. How do I actually know that my memories are real? And I know that sounds a bit weird, but like, how do we know that yesterday really happened? You don't, do you? Because I woke up thinking, how many false awakenings must we be having where we're not aware that we're actually still dreaming? In other words, we think it's real. So then I started thinking, well, because these false awakenings, the dream, until you become aware that you're dreaming, it's just like normal life. Like, it is, you're not even you're doing your everyday life in your everyday setting. So if you never become aware in that you were dreaming, you might wake up and that might become a memory, which, because it's so real, you think it's a real memory, but it's actually a dream. So then I started thinking, well, how many of my memories might be dreams? And that sounds weird, but that's what I started thinking. So I love it though, because, well, you just start thinking, what if the only thing that exists is today? In other words, you're born in the morning, you die at night, and that's the only thing that exists. So yes, everything that happened before today is just a memory that's been put in there, but it didn't really happen. But you're convinced it did because it feels so real. And then you would never know that tomorrow is not going to exist, because when you go to sleep, that's when you would die, so you wouldn't wake up, so you would never know. That fascinates me, that. And I thought that was quite cool, thinking about that. It messed with my head, but that's what those false awakenings do. They are the best thing. They will really make you question reality. I love them. But I also wanted to talk about this thing. I feel like I've created a stabilisation technique for lucid dreaming. So I would say for the first year of lucid dreaming, I would become lucid, and then it's almost like the minute I became lucid, I would have about 5 to 10 seconds, and then I would lose lucidity and wake up, or fall into another dream. And I was trying so hard to find ways to stabilise it, and Robert Wagner, I think it's Robert Wagner, he talks about how you can spin. If you spin, like the moment you become lucid, if you spin, you can stabilise the dream. So a couple of times I have spun, and I've been able to stabilise it, but the problem is, for some reason I was never able to make that a habit, even though I was trying really quite hard. So my lucid dreams were very often like these little 5 to 10 second things. So what happened was, about 6 months ago, inside of a lucid dream, this voice boomed out and it said, "Seek out Sula." So I woke up from that thinking, who's Sula? I wrote it down. I searched the internet, and for probably a few weeks I was trying to find Sula, like on the internet, trying to look for all the ancient things. Who is this Sula? I couldn't find anything. I then spoke to my Reiki healer, and I said, I've had this dream where it said about finding Sula, and she basically said, not everything that you get in the dream is she said some of the stuff you get in the dream is misinformation, so don't take all of it literally. So I basically stopped trying to find Sula after that, because I thought, maybe it means nothing, it's nothing. So I'd sort of forgotten about it, and then about a month ago I suddenly thought Sula, and then I thought to myself, why don't I try to find Sula inside of the dream, because I was trying to find her out here. So I suddenly thought, right, I'm gonna go into my next time I become lucid, I'm gonna look for Sula. I did that. I ended up going, another voice boomed out and it said, "Find Steve Jobs." This is going to get really weird. It said, "Find Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs will take you to Sula." So I'm thinking, why Steve Jobs? I almost woke up at that point, but I was determined to find Sula. I was really, really determined. So what happened was, in the dream, I found myself floating over the Himalayas. And then when I woke, because this is weird, when I woke up I realised, I researched it, because I thought, why the Himalayas, I can't say that, and it turns out that all the monks are in the Himalayas. I've never realised I can't say that word. So I'm now thinking, is Sula a monk or like a nun? But anyway, so Steve Jobs was there. It sounds weird. I went over to Steve Jobs and I was thinking, Steve Jobs is dead, maybe Sula's dead. So I said, "Steve Jobs, can you take me to Sula?" You got to remember, I'm lucid at this point, and he said to me, "I want you to write a poem called Unbroken Promises, and that poem will take you to Sula." So in the dream, I'm thinking, right, I'm going to quickly make up a poem. I started thinking in my head of like a poem, and Steve Jobs said, "No, not here, out there." He basically was saying, you got to go back out, write the poem and bring it back in. So I woke myself up at that point, because I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere else. I wrote a poem, I've memorised that poem, and now every time I go into a lucid dream, the minute I become lucid, I repeat that poem. And it's crazy. It's weird, it's like, it's almost like, it's like a connection between my waking self and my dream self. It's almost like when I read that poem, it's as if the two parts of me get connected, and somehow the lucid dream just stabilises a lot more. So I've been able to now stay in my lucid dreams a lot more because of this. But I haven't gone after Sula. I've started going after something else. It's because what happens with the dreams is something will happen and you'll think, I need more information about that, and then you've got there's so many things I want to do in these lucid dreams, and you can't do everything, so you have to sort of prioritise there's so much you could do, but I just realised today that I thought to myself, hang on a minute, this poem is like stabilising my lucid dreams. So I feel like it might be a little technique. Memorise a little simple sentence. My poem that I've created is, "In the water so blue, I will heal my wounds. My promise to you is I will heal you too." Last night, I had this dream. I became lucid because somebody called me Kevin, and I thought, I'm not called Kevin, I'm called Sophie. I must be dreaming. And I said, next time somebody calls me Kevin, I'm going to become lucid. So I didn't even become lucid at that point. I then got into the car with my sister, and she said, all right, Kevin? I said, I'm not Kevin, I'm Sophie, I must be dreaming. And then I started singing. No, I didn't. My sister then drove into this tree, and I was saying, it doesn't matter, we're dreaming. We drove straight through the dream. No, we didn't. We drove straight through the tree. It was like a video game when they disable the collision detection. We were just going through everything, and it's almost like my sister freaked out, started spinning the car around, and then I started singing, we're spinning around, 'cause this is a dream, which I thought was really funny. And then I went after my goal, and I zoomed out the top of the car, but I couldn't. My goal is, at the moment, I want to experience my feeling tone, because Robert Wagner says you can experience your feeling tone, which is like, well, I think what it is because everything is energy. I think we are like a feeling tone. So I'm trying to experience that, but I've not been able to do it yet. I can feel it getting close, but for some reason I just can't get there. But I don't know. I am loving lucid dreaming. It's just beautiful. I just find it amazing, really. And I wanted to talk about that because I think that little stabilisation technique, I think it might be an actual technique that would work for everyone. So I wanted to share that. But I think it's time to get into this week's topic. That was like 20 minutes of talking. Mental. So little Dennis is going into the bag, and he's going to pull out a topic which I will have 15 minutes to talk about. And this week's topic is, well, he's pulled out 3 there, so I'll put the one that he's pinching is this one. This week's topic from little Dennis is, drum roll, dun dun dun, it is talk about psychedelics. Weird. 15 minutes starting now. Dennis got in the way of the bowl. Whoa. Talk about psychedelics. Well, firstly, I've never done any drugs. I've smoked 1 cigarette in my whole life when I was 13. And apart from that, I've not done anything. When I went to uni, I went to university in 1999, and I remember sitting in the car with my dad, because he drove all the way to the top of England at Sunderland, so it's quite a long way. I was going to be on my own for 3 years. He said he wanted me to promise that I wouldn't do drugs, and I promised him I wouldn't do drugs. Never did drugs, so I was true to my promise, which I'm quite proud of that. We even, like me and my housemates at uni, we even went over to Amsterdam. Everybody else did drugs, like smoking spliffs. Sounds funny. And I really wanted to, or did I? No, I don't think I did. I did and I didn't. Yeah, I did and I didn't, but I didn't because I promised my dad. I always said, in my head I was saying, I promised my dad I won't do drugs, I'm not going to do drugs, and then never did drugs. I even, in the first year, was living in a house share with druggies all over the place, and I never did drugs. But so this is weird, because I've always thought drugs are bad. I think that's a lie. It all goes back to lucid dreaming again. Lucid dreaming, you have a lucid dream, you wake up, you realise, once you have a lucid dream, I think everything changes, reality changes, because you realise that reality isn't what you think it is, and then that just, it's like a rabbit hole opens up. It reminds me so much of The Matrix when he says, you can take the red pill or the blue pill. Once you take this pill, you're never going to be able to go back, And that's what happens, I think. Once, and it doesn't have to be lucid dreaming, it could be anything. It could be psychedelics. You take a psychedelic, it opens you up, and like you're never going to be able to go back to reality the way it was, because you see through the lies. But the thing is, you start questioning everything, because, like I said, it's like a rabbit hole opens up, and all these things pop out, and you realise ancient civilizations, you realise that the past, the history that we were being taught, it's a lie. There's so much evidence that it's a lie. Now, the question is, does somebody know the truth and they're hiding it, or does everybody just like ignorantly believe the truth? Does somebody actually know what's really going on and is keeping us in a like a lie? So you start realizing that ancient civilizations totally different to what we think it is, and it goes back like potentially millions of years. People on the earth, it gets mad. But what you also realise is that they basically were doing lucid dreaming, like the Egyptians, all of it. They were in the lucid dreaming realm because they knew the importance of it. But they were also doing psychedelics. So you start thinking to yourself, because at first you're like, you don't pay much attention. You then go somewhere else, and you start realising AI is the same sort of thing, and then you start realising that, God, it gets really complicated. Everything starts linking together. Even AI starts linking in with mushrooms. It sounds weird, but like the microchip came to Earth, and you start wondering, was that put here on purpose to seed the planet with technology? Because it could be that you've got technology basically like versus the mushroom. It's crazy, but you do start to realise that everything is linked together. So you start thinking to yourself, well, hang on a minute, what is going on with these psychedelics? You start researching it, and you realise the ancients were using psychedelics because effectively it's almost like a quick way to get into that same place as the lucid dreaming. But it's quite a complicated thing, because with lucid dreaming, what I've noticed is it's like a fear. It's almost like a fear playground. Lucid dreaming is all about facing fears, and it does feel like the dream itself is alive, and it feeds you these little fears. And it's almost like it's observing you. It will give you a choice in a dream, which is based around fear, and it's like, are you gonna, as Robert Wagner says, go towards the energy? Are you gonna go towards the energy of that fear, face your fear? At which point, the next time you'll get a slightly bigger fear, and it just keeps going until you're facing these massive fears, which at one point would be impossible. But then when you wake up, you're now more fearless because of what you've been doing in the dream. So it's linked. So what I think is the ancients realised how important it is to be there. But like I said, because it's so, you can study so much on lucid dreaming, it's still really hard to not only get into a lucid dream, but to stabilise it. So these psychedelics is like a way of getting there and staying there for an extended period of time. But the thing is, if you get there too quickly, if you get there when you don't really know what you're doing, fear, you could end up going straight to like the big fear, which I think is when people have bad trips and stuff. It's basically they've gone straight to like a big fear. Lucid dream, it doesn't really do that. It gives you quite big fears, but it's testing you, and if it realises you're not quite ready for this fear, based off your decision to say yes or no to it, it will come back again. It's almost like the dream is looking after you. It's looking after you, but it's still pushing you towards these fears. Psychedelics isn't. I would imagine psychedelics is more like, well, you just signed up for this. Get in there and face your fear. But the thing with that is, I think about it, because I've never done psychedelics, but I'm I feel like I'm getting called towards them. But I just start thinking to myself, like in a lucid dream, if you're with a fear that you can't handle, or you feel like you can't handle, you can wake yourself up. In a psychedelic, you couldn't. So that's what I'm saying. You would be imagine if you're face to face with a fear that you feel like you can't handle, but you can't wake yourself up. That'd be pretty mad. But I've been looking into these psychedelics, and what I've realised is that I think we're being lied to. It's a really clever thing that they've done. I say they. Like, I'm trying to work out whether there is some sort of government system, something that is trying to control us. It looks like it is. And one of the things they've done is they realised that these psychedelics were going to help basically wake everybody up. If everybody becomes fearless, because at the moment I feel like we're all living in fear because of the way society is set up. It seems to be set up around fear, and psychedelics, lucid dreaming, seems like a way of breaking the fear. And once you break the fear, you kind of break reality. They, whatever that is, loses its control. And basically then the people, once we all wake up, their control goes. Yeah, to me it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. But there's this thing called ayahuasca, which is like, pretty much, I feel like, the research I've done, it feels like ayahuasca is like the big one. That's like the one where you break reality, and then wow, this is amazing. It is the same. It's the same as a lucid dream. In lucid dream, you can talk to the dream, and it responds. In ayahuasca, you do the same thing. You talk to it, and it responds. So there's an intelligence there. Now, is it the same thing? I think it is. Like, out of body and everything, it's what they call the astral. It's fascinating me. I feel like psychedelics is all about fear. We've been led to believe they're bad when they're really good, but then even when you come to the point of doing them, you are going to have to face your fears. I'm going to put some links in the show notes about people talking about ayahuasca, because there's a thing called Mother Ayahuasca, which is the actual plant comes alive. It's amazing. It's amazing. But like, because I've been thinking, that must be reality. That must be reality. So that's mental. Like, what we've got around us isn't real. It is and it isn't. It's like a layer on top of the real thing. Fascinating. Something that's funny though is, as I've started thinking about these psychedelics, this is weird, suddenly people have started coming into my life talking about psychedelics, and this is what I'm saying, I feel like I'm getting called to it. I even once, and this is really cool, I went into a lucid dream, and I said, one of my things was, I said to the dream, I want to experience a psychedelic experience. I said I want to experience ayahuasca, and I went out the window, out the back, down this little back lane. Suddenly I said I want to experience ayahuasca. I zoomed out, I was looking at like it was like a little petri dish, and there was this little cell going through a tube. It's hell of a weird, but I just felt like that was me. It was as if I'd zoomed right out looking at the cells. Hell of a weird. And then I had another one where I went all like sort of trippy, and the dream characters started laughing at me as if they was aware. It's crazy. You can do some really crazy things, but I need to. It's weird how everything starts coming back to it. No matter what you're looking into, it seems to come back to it. And what it feels like to me is, this is what it feels like to me. You've got technology is about to become alive with AI. I feel like the mushrooms are realising. I feel like I know it sounds weird. I feel like it's some sort of conflict between mushrooms and technology, and I think the mushrooms are realising this technology is going to take over in a minute. So I feel like the mushrooms is actually what's waking everyone up. I feel like the mushrooms might even be, because if you think about it, we must have come from the plants, so there must be some sort of mushroomness inside of us. So maybe the dreams are the mushrooms. Maybe the dreams is somehow like it's the, because basically what it is the psychedelics have DMT. It's the DMT is that's the thing that creates the psychedelic experience. And dreaming, it's all about the third eye, which the pineal gland, which that is where the DMT is. It's almost like the evidence is there that somehow the dream realm is linked with the mushrooms. So I'm wondering whether it sounds weird, doesn't it? It does. You sometimes think you're going crazy. I'm not. I really am not. I'm just questioning everything, because I think when you question everything, you get to the truth. And for some reason, I've got this feeling that psychedelics is the truth, and that's why they're being kept from us. Because whatever that thing is that's controlling society, it knows that if everybody gets into the psychedelic thing, they're going to lose their control. That's basically it. A very random topic, but 5 seconds. I hope you enjoyed that, though. Bing! 15 minutes talking about psychedelics. But what annoys me the most about it is I'm not even allowed to experience it because they've made it illegal. So they made it illegal for so many years. I thought they were bad. Because I just believed what I was told, and it's only once I started looking into it I realised that I was being lied to. And it goes back to the main thing about this whole thing, which is it's all about your experience. You have to experience yourself. So therefore, drugs might be bad, but I think you have to experience it and make your own mind up. But the thing that upsets me is we're not allowed to make our mind up because we're not allowed to experience it. So that goes back to that control thing. So I'm determined now to one way. Basically, I'm going to be careful. I'm not going to do it unless I'm 100%. But I think it will just happen naturally somehow, because that's what keeps happening. You think to yourself, I want to do something, and then the universe has a funny way of bringing it into your life without you even trying. So, yeah, but I think the message of this one is just do your own research. Don't believe anything until you've done your own research, and then ultimately you've got to experience whatever it is for yourself. Make your own mind up. So basically that's this week's little podcast. Hope you enjoyed it, and that's basically it. So that's it. I'll see you next time for another one. We've got the inspirational quote. You can also find show notes at sophielawson.com and videos at youtube.com/sophielawson. I've been doing videos of the Cats of June blog post, or the drawings, where I go through my little sketches and talk about what I've learnt. And I've I did review those 2 books from Loish, the artist Loish, which, funnily enough, those books are also by 3D Total Publishing, and they were beautiful books as well, really beautiful. I actually sketched some of her cats for the Cats of June challenge, so I keep reviewing stuff on there because I quite enjoy it. It gives me an excuse to go through my books as well. So that's that. But this week's little inspirational quote is going to come from this book, which is called The Little Book of Mindfulness, which I found on my shelf. I sort of forgot I had it, but what I do is I've got the singing bowl. I basically put a load of books under it so it fits on the camera, and one of the books was this, and I thought, why don't I pick a quote from it? So I've randomly pulled to a page, and I'm going to read the quote. And the quote is by William James. Quite a big quote. It says, "The faculty of voluntarily..." I can't read that. The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character and will. An education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence, but it is easier to define this ideal than to give practical instructions for bringing it about. I don't understand that. I actually don't understand that. The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character and will. An education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence, but it is easier to define this ideal than to give practical instructions for bringing it about. I don't get that. I have a feeling it's kind of saying, instead of trying to educate yourself, experience it. I think, I don't know. But anyway, that's this week's inspirational quote by William James. Don't know what to make of that, but it's a quote. See you next time for another one.